You probably would not die in ancient Egypt doing something heroic. No, no. It would be something embarrassingly practical and honestly, way less flattering. You would die from being born, drinking the wrong water, or, weirdly enough, getting promoted. Ancient Egypt really knew how to surprise people badly, because this place was not built to keep ordinary people comfortable. It was built to keep civilization running, which is a very different priority. So drop your modern self into New Kingdom Egypt, one of its most powerful periods, and let us see how quickly history starts bullying you. First problem, you have to be born here, which is not exactly the warm, encouraging opening scene your survival story wanted. When people picture ancient Egypt, they imagine pyramids, gold, eyeliner, statues, sunlight. They usually do not picture life beginning with a deeply personal dice roll. Infant mortality was brutal. Childhood was worse. No antibiotics, no modern medicine, no helpful machines beeping nearby, just a very tense suggestion of survival. So your first goal is not becoming important. It is staying alive long enough to become annoying, which somehow counts as progress. And let us be generous here. Say you do survive. Congratulations, you just beat the hardest tutorial level, not dying immediately. Now you get to be a child in ancient Egypt, which sounds innocent. Until you remember, ancient societies did not exactly protect childhood very enthusiastically. Here, childhood is not some magical season of play. It is early labor, just with worse coordination, smaller arms, and fewer useful complaints. You help the family, carry things, watch younger siblings, and learn survival before your spine has even finished negotiating with gravity. Maybe that means farming. Maybe hauling. Maybe learning the family trade while your body is still trying, badly, to become a body. And food? Not luxurious. Bread, maybe milk, fruit, vegetables, maybe fish, assuming someone can pull dinner from the Nile without becoming dinner. So yes, technically you are fed, but in the least glamorous way possible. More survival fuel than cuisine, more maintenance than pleasure. This is not a land of cinematic feasts. It is a land of, here is your bread. Please do not ask questions about the texture. And that is one of the first lies your modern brain has to bury. Ancient Egypt looked beautiful from far away. Up close, it was maintenance. Fields, tools, animals, food, bodies, homes, survival. Every day begins with the quiet fear that enough small failures make everything worse. Fast, simple, harsh, unforgiving. That is the rhythm now. Not because anyone is cruel for fun, but because survival itself is already rude enough. Now it gets worse. Because even if you survive childhood and grow into something vaguely useful, Egypt still asks the dangerous question, who are you? And that matters a lot. Because Egypt is not just a place. It is a system. Polished, religious, organized, and very interested in hierarchy. At the top sits Pharaoh, not merely a king, but officially a divine ruler, which is a lot of pressure for everyone underneath him. Below him come elites, advisors, priests, officials, scribes, the educated layers. Then below them, the people doing the exhausting work that keeps everything alive. Farmers, workers, builders, servants. And near the bottom, the people with the fewest choices, which is, conveniently, where history enjoys placing outsiders. And you are obviously an outsider. You talk weird, look wrong, dress wrong, move wrong, Your whole existence feels like an administrative mistake. In a highly ordered ancient society, that is not charming. It is not quirky. It is not mysterious. It is a problem. Best case, you are seen as a strange outsider with some use. Worst case, you are not seen as a person with options at all. That is what modern people usually get wrong about the past. They arrive in their heads as the main character. History arrives with more practical casting. History does not look at your modern confidence and whisper destiny. It looks at you, shrugs, and says, "Great, more labor." So your priorities change again. Not treasure, not secrets, not forbidden tombs. Usefulness. Beautiful, sweaty, unglamorous usefulness. You need to be useful. Because if you cannot explain yourself here, then you have to prove yourself. With labor, obedience, and visible value. You do not know hieroglyphics. You do not know the customs. You are not networking your way into a temple. Absolutely not. But maybe you can lift things. Maybe carry baskets. Maybe move stone from one place to another with the panic of a man avoiding slavery. And honestly, that might save you. Not because ancient Egypt is kind, but because it is practical, which is somehow worse. If you can work, you might be folded into the machine instead of crushed underneath it. That is the hopeful version. Disturbingly enough. And that sounds manageable. Right up until you realize your reward for being useful is simply more work. A lot more work. Because the Nile, by the way, is not scenic background decoration. It is life, schedule, food supply, labor system. Basically, your very demanding employer. Without the Nile, Egypt does not function. But dependence has teeth, and the river that feeds you can also rearrange your entire existence. It can flood your world, redirect your work, and remind you that nature in the ancient world is not your friend. It is management. And management here does not negotiate. It does not care about your comfort, your plans, or your lower back's emotional needs. So yes, you survived birth, childhood, and the first round of social sorting in a civilization that does not care about your dreams. That is impressive. Genuinely. You made it through a system built for order, not comfort, which is almost a personality test from hell. But now the real danger begins. Because surviving ancient Egypt is not only about avoiding death. That would be too straightforward. It is about earning the right to stay exhausted. Which sounds poetic, until you realize it is also, unfortunately, extremely literal. And next, we find out where the system puts you, what work it demands, and why survival here may be the first step toward breaking you. So, congratulations. You did not die in childbirth, infancy, childhood, social confusion, or by annoying a system that has no patience for your modern personality. Which means you now qualify for the next grand stage of ancient Egypt. Manual labor. Yes, this is where things somehow become even less glamorous. And if that sounds grim, good. Your instincts are finally waking up, and for once they are not being overly dramatic. Because for most people, life here was not temple philosophy and elegant afterlife discussions. It was work so physical your skeleton would file complaints. This civilization runs on agriculture, routine, hierarchy, and relentless effort. Which means your modern skill set is, let us say, not especially transferable. Doom scrolling, reheating leftovers, and having passionate opinions about documentaries will not carry you very far in this century. Tragic, I know. You need a job. Not a dream job, not a passion, not a self-discovery season. Just a job, and quickly. And the obvious place to start is farming. because that is where most people are. If Egypt is a machine, farmers are the gears. Not glamorous, not loud, absolutely necessary. And if you need to disappear into usefulness, the fields are a very practical place to do it. So picture it. The sun is already rude, the ground is stubborn, and your back starts complaining in ways that feel older than language. The tools are simple, the labor is not, and everyone around you moves with the terrifying confidence of people who have done this forever. Planting, tending, harvesting, carrying, storing, repeating. No ergonomic chair, no life hacks, no quiet quitting. Just consequences. If the crops fail, everything gets strange very quickly, which is not the kind of suspense you want attached to your breakfast. This is your life now. And weirdly, at first that might feel like a small victory, which says troubling things about your standards. Because labor means stability. Sort of. If you can work, you can belong. If you can belong, maybe you eat. If you eat, maybe you live. That is the kind of optimism ancient Egypt allows. Not happiness, exactly. Just catastrophe that has been politely rescheduled. Your daily menu is not luxurious, but it is functional. Bread, more bread, maybe vegetables, maybe fruit, maybe milk, maybe fish. This is not dining. This is maintenance with chewing. And honestly, that is still better than starving with dignity. And the work does not stop. You wake up, labor, eat enough to labor again, sleep badly, then repeat the whole elegant disaster tomorrow. This is where the fantasy of simple living finally dies. Ancient simplicity is only charming when someone else is doing it for you. When you are the one carrying, cutting, hauling, sweating, repairing, and begging your body to keep cooperating, minimalism feels much less spiritual, and at the center of all of it sits the Nile. Water source, farm engine, schedule maker, lifeline. The river is basically the whole system. It feeds the fields, sets the rhythm, and decides whether Egypt gets to remain Egypt at all. No Nile, no abundance, no civilization. Which would be fine if dependence were not such a dangerous relationship. But relying on one thing this much is never calming, is it? Because the Nile does not just sit there looking majestic for your establishing shots. It floods, interrupts routines, and forces everyone to adapt quickly. If the river is kind, it feeds you. If it turns difficult, it reminds you how thin the line is between order and panic. And this is where a modern person makes the classic emotional mistake. You start thinking, okay, hard, yes, but manageable. Dangerous thought. That sentence gets people killed. Because once you adjust to the misery, ancient Egypt introduces a new trap. False confidence wearing a familiar face. Maybe you get decent at farm work. Maybe people stop looking at you like a suspicious time-traveling mistake and start seeing useful hands. Maybe you even begin to feel stable, which is exactly when the environment leans in and says, adorable. Now watch this. Because the same world that feeds you is also packed with quiet little threats that do not care how well you are adapting. Cuts get infected, exhaustion piles up, heat drains you, animals do what animals do, tools break, food spoils, and your luck starts thinning.
Now what?
One bad injury can turn worker into burden very, very fast. And there is no elegant safety net waiting underneath your problems. If you are too sick to work, that matters. If you are too hurt to carry your share, that matters. Inconvenience becomes danger here. Ancient life is built on interdependence, which sounds warm and communal, until you realize one weak link becomes everybody's headache, including yours.
Almost there.
So
The
every day
burden of
becomes a
utility
negotiation
weighs
between
heavy,
usefulness and
a
collapse.
precarious balance
A
in
balancing
this
act where
painted
failure
farce.
is not dramatic, just
One
increasingly
step
expensive.
closer to collapse. The
And then the Nile
floodwaters
changes things
rise,
again.
rewriting
Flood
the
season,
map of my
which sounds
labor.
poetic.
The
Right
Nile
until your
takes
schedule,
what it needs,
movement, and sanity
I
all
am
get
left to
rewritten by water.
watch.
On paper, this is beautiful. The river rises, the land renews, fertility returns, civilization continues. Cue the elegant narration and absolutely none of the inconvenience. In practice, your work changes, your movement changes, your environment changes, and the whole system starts rearranging itself around the floodwater. The river that makes farming possible now interrupts farming in order to make future farming possible.
It takes it away.
Clever for civilization, deeply annoying for you. So while the waters do their thing,
Your name
what
is
happens
marked.
to you?
The floods
Easy.
demand your labor.
You get reassigned because ancient Egypt is very talented at reusing
Just
bodies.
tell me where to go.
This civilization is wealthy, impressive, religious, unforgettable, but above all, it is efficient at turning people into output. And now your body is available. So maybe you get
Still so
sent to
much
construction,
stone and state
not the
work
old pyramid
waiting.
fantasy in your head.
Get that block
Those are
moved.
ancient history
Faster.
already. But there is
So
still
much
plenty of stone.
labor.
Temples,
Lift.
monuments,
Pull.
storage works, transport jobs,
Push.
repair projects, state labor.
Heave.
All of it still needs muscles.
Again.
And unfortunately, you still have some. Which means your
I
skeleton is
feel
about
the
to become a
weight
public
of this
resource.
existence.
A very
stranger
tired,
to
very
this era,
under-consulted public
forced
resource,
into
but a
labor
resource
by the
all the same.
state. My body.
You spend your days dragging, lifting, carrying, stacking, shaping, hauling, repeating. Which is a very thorough way to discover architecture has personal vendettas.
Move,
Stone,
stick
wood,
man.
supplies,
the beams
tools,
aren't gonna lift
whatever the
themselves.
system needs. Your muscles are politely volunteered for it.
Just
By
don't
politely,
look
I
at
mean
me
not at all
funny.
politely. And before your modern brain says, well, at least I go to the gym. No, this is not gym tired. This is civilization using your spine as equipment.
The rope
Every
is
movement
weak,
matters.
but it
Every
holds.
mistake costs. And the workplace safety
Proceed
policy
with
is basically
caution.
just fate wearing a
I
blank
am
expression.
always cautious here.
Drop something,
Heavier.
strain something,
It's
slip
getting
once at the wrong
heavier.
time.
Keep moving.
And suddenly,
We
ancient
have a
Egypt reminds
quota.
you how little it
Help.
values worker protection. Still,
The
there is a
work
dangerous little pride in it.
endures.
That is the trap.
My patience
Humans can
wears
normalize
thin,
almost anything once suffering
yet
becomes
I
routine
remain.
enough. After a
Another
while, you stop
day.
thinking, this is unbearable, and start thinking, I guess this is Tuesday. Which is never a reassuring
Indeed.
sentence. And that mental shift is exactly how ancient Egypt gets you. You begin functioning inside the machine instead of noticing how it is grinding you down. You learn the rhythm. Lift this, move that, wait for orders, eat when allowed, sleep when the day finally lets go of your throat. Then repeat. Maybe you even start thinking you have done it. Not thriving, obviously. Let us not become delusional, but stable enough to stop panicking every second. And that is when the universe gets funny. Because physical labor was only half the problem. The other half is everything you cannot see. Ancient Egypt is full of invisible threats waiting for a warm body to misunderstand them, and you, unfortunately, are extremely available. Let us
The
start with
Nile.
water. Yes,
They
the Nile
say
gives
it gives
life.
life.
We all know the official
I
brochure.
don't believe
But
them.
life-giving water gets less romantic up close. People wash in it, work in it, carry things
Careful
through it,
with that
dump things
bucket.
into it, and generally treat
Wash
it in
it
ways your modern
thoroughly.
hygiene instincts hate.
Why are they doing this?
So maybe after a long day of dust, sweat, and regrettable decisions, you step into the river to clean yourself off. Reasonable. Fatal adjacent, but reasonable. And that is how the river teaches one of history's rudest lessons. Sometimes trying to be clean is exactly how you get sick. In ancient Egypt, even your survival instincts can betray you.
Even cleaning myself
That
can
is an
betray
impressively
me.
hostile feature for a civilization to
How
have.
is this possible?
You step into the water to wash off the day, and the river quietly sends something home with you. Something very small and very committed. Now imagine the camera zooming in way too much, because somewhere in that water is a tiny parasitic nightmare making very ambitious plans for your insides. And just like that,
Something
ancient Egypt stops being only a labor
is
story and
wrong.
becomes a body story, which is a much less inspiring genre.
Inside me.
One of the nastier possibilities is schistosomiasis, a parasite linked to freshwater exposure, which is such a deeply unfair sentence, honestly. You touch the water source your civilization depends on, and in return, something microscopic decided your organs looked rentable. Incredible arrangement.
The world outside.
So now
it
maybe you get
stirs.
fever,
I can
pain,
almost taste
weakness,
it.
and
But this
consequences
sickness,
so
it holds
undignified
me
history
here.
books usually
The
sprint
silence
past them
is
at top speed.
unbearable. Not like this.
And the worst part
An
is,
inglorious
this does
end
not
to a
feel
life
dramatic.
Of great
It
consequence.
feels inconvenient,
Just a cough
messy,
and a
draining,
bowl of weak
humiliating,
soup.
which is
The
somehow even
indignity.
crueler.
The sickness spreads
Parasites
here.
are only one item on the menu, by the
Stay
way.
away from the food.
Ancient Egypt also offers
Water is
disease in a wide
tainted.
variety of deeply unwanted
see
formats. Malaria, tuberculosis, smallpox, infected cuts. All the quiet illnesses that become much worse when your body is already busy surviving everything else. That is what makes this place so cruel. It is cumulative. Work weakens you, heat drains you, sleep barely repairs you. Then something
I
slips
have
in.
this
Ancient
stack of
survival is rarely
problems.
one giant
Too
disaster.
many to count.
It is tiny failures
They're
stacked
not
on top of
going
each other
anywhere,
until your
and
body
neither
quietly
am
loses
I.
the argument. And with no modern medicine to rescue you, the margin for error
yes.
becomes
My
terrifyingly thin.
head. I
Every
feel
ache,
it.
fever, bite, and
is
cough
this?
suddenly matters. Knowledge alone does not save you either. You may understand germs, contamination, and disease better. Wonderful. That mostly upgrades your anxiety.
I could
Unless
use
your
some of
knowledge
that.
arrives with antibiotics, clean
It's
plumbing,
always out
and
of
an actual
reach.
healthcare system, it is not magic. It is trivia under pressure. You are not a wizard. You are a worried mammal with context.
Mm-hmm.
And context is not nearly as helpful as medicine when your body starts failing. And yet, somehow, you keep going. Because humans are unbelievably rude about refusing to collapse exactly when they probably
must
should.
Continue.
You drag yourself back to work,
Still don't
learn
trust
which
this
pain to
water.
ignore, and try to
Better
drink
not.
carefully in a world that does not make careful especially easy. Soon you start looking tired in a permanent way, like even your shadow has back pain and your organs are holding a private grudge. And then somebody notices. Not because of your
his
sparkling
endurance.
personality, obviously.
He does not yield.
Ancient Egypt has already suffered
I
enough
am
of that from
simply
you.
here.
Because
The
if you
toil
survive
never
hard labor,
ends.
keep moving under pressure
They
and remain
watch.
useful while your body
I
quietly
work.
negotiates with ruin,
The system
that starts to look like
holds.
potential, not safety, of course. Ancient Egypt does not really hand out safety, but potential, strength, endurance, obedience. That gets noticed very quickly. And in a kingdom that likes projecting power beyond its borders, there is one place those traits suddenly become very valuable: the military. So after birth, labor, hunger, hierarchy,
your summons.
filth,
A
fatigue,
new
disease,
role awaits.
and the deeply unimpressive
Very
achievement of
well.
not dying yet,
I accept.
you get what sounds like a promotion.
You
You are no longer just another
Step
worker.
forward.
You are being pulled upward,
me?
selected,
Yes,
seen,
you.
which
Come
would
with
be
me.
wonderful in a less alarming civilization. Because now ancient Egypt has decided you are useful in a new way. Fantastic. Apparently, surviving this much only qualifies you for sharper problems. From far away, becoming a soldier sounds like an upgrade. More status, more respect, better than being one more exhausted body in a field. It feels like movement,
selection.
progress. The kind of news your modern
and
brain
good
desperately
news?
wants to label as good, which
must
is exactly
believe
why it is
so.
dangerous. It is not good news.
Attack!
It is simply
Now.
a more dramatic
Push.
way to
Keep
die,
advancing.
with more
Don't look
shouting,
back.
better props,
Forward.
and slightly
Follow
worse
me.
odds.
Hold the line.
Because war in ancient
Advance.
Egypt is not the clean, glorious
Prepare
thing
for
your
the
brain borrows
charge.
from museum
Move,
lighting and
move.
strategy games.
Keep your
It
shields
is
ready.
heat, dust, panic, blood,
Hold the
and
line.
confusion. Still, before
maybe
reality
this
arrives
isn't so
properly,
bad.
there is a brief, stupid moment
Wait
where
a
military
minute.
life almost seems
What
cool.
was that?
That is how the trap
for
works.
the love of...
Line
You get
up.
trained.
Spears
You learn
ready.
formations, where to
Yes,
stand,
sir.
what to hold, when to move,
Forward march.
and how not to embarrass yourself in front of veterans. Maybe
Time
you
to
get a
equip.
shield, maybe a spear,
shield first,
maybe a bow,
then the spear.
maybe, if fate is feeling
now,
theatrical,
the
a khopesh that
khopesh.
looks amazing right up to the first screen. And for one truly embarrassing second, you feel powerful, which is the kind of emotion history usually
The
punishes
battlefield
immediately.
is a harsh,
That feeling does
immediate,
not survive
and
contact with
merciless
reality.
place.
The battlefield
Our
has a
time
special
of
talent for
romantic
removing
fantasy
romance at
is
speed.
over. Hold
Maybe the
line.
enemy is one of the peoples Egypt fought to
Engage
control
the
territory
enemy.
and power. Maybe it is just another
Push
frightened group
forward.
of armed humans trying not to die. They are not faceless extras in your adventure. They are terrified, armed, exhausted people standing between you and survival. And they would also like to go home. That is what war does to grand language.
Attention.
Glory, order,
Stand
divine
fast.
legitimacy,
Stand
expansion.
fast.
All of it collapses into one
Hold
much
the
simpler
line.
instruction.
Hold
Stay
the
standing.
line.
Follow
Line
orders, do
formation.
not panic,
Shields
and
up,
hope the
you
person
dogs.
aiming at you has
Hold
worse luck
steady.
than you do. That is
Attest.
war after all the speeches
Fire.
are stripped away. And the first real moment
Keep
hits
it
fast.
together.
Weirdly, it
Stay
is not the
strong.
sight that gets you first.
Don't
It is the
move.
sound. Shouting,
Advance.
wood
Hold the
cracking,
line.
metal striking, feet pounding,
Charge.
arrows cutting the air with that awful whisper your body
For
understands
Egypt.
before your mind does. Then, the distance between story and danger disappears all at once, and every fantasy your modern brain packed for this moment dies immediately. And suddenly, every lesson ancient Egypt taught you makes horrible sense. The labor built endurance. The hierarchy built obedience. The misery built tolerance. That is the twist. The entire civilization has been training you for usefulness, not comfort, from the very beginning. A farmer when food is needed, a laborer when monuments are needed, a soldier when bodies are needed. Efficient, cold, brutally elegant. And now here you are, useful again, which is not nearly as flattering as powerful civilizations tend to make it sound. There is a special kind of horror in realizing your life has become interchangeable with a function, a role, a task the machine can replace.
Keep
you loose
the
arrows,
line.
throw spears,
Move
brace
forward.
behind a shield, advance because the
Advance
line
the
advances,
formation.
stop because the line
Attack.
stops. Not because any of it feels
No.
noble.
Keep the line.
You watch men fall with the abrupt ugliness
Push
history usually
forward.
edits out. No speeches, no symbolism, just
They
bodies
are
turning from
falling.
alive to not.
I never
And
wanted
then
to
another
fight this
thought lands
battle.
hard.
They never told us
somebody
this
over
was their
there,
land.
You
We
are the
thought you
invader.
were coming for our homes.
You are the armed
We didn't
stranger
want
helping
this
someone
either.
else's map get bigger. You are not the protagonist in their story. You are the reason their hands shake, their families panic, and their day becomes unforgivably terrible. That realization changes everything. Ancient Egypt stops feeling like a survival challenge and starts feeling like what it really is: a machine. A magnificent machine.
In the realm
Yes.
of antiquity.
Brilliant, artistic, organized, powerful, but still a machine. And machines do not love the parts inside them. They use them. That is the final reversal. All the greatness, temples, campaigns, wealth, spectacle, and myth sit directly on human cost. That is why you would not survive here. Not just because the water poisons, the labor breaks, or the war erases, though those certainly help. You would not survive because ancient Egypt was never built to protect ordinary people from suffering. It was built to use that suffering well. From far away, history lights all of this beautifully. Temples, order, grandeur, divine kingship. It is very good at flattering the machine from a safe distance. Up close, though, it looks different. It looks like fields, workshops, floodplains, sickbeds, marching lines, and ordinary people paying the bill. Nobody daydreams about becoming the labor behind the legend, but that is what most lives were. Effort spent keeping something larger standing overhead. That might be the strangest twist of all. Ancient Egypt is remembered as immortal largely because so many ordinary lives inside it were not. So yes, the temples were beautiful. Yes, the kingdom was powerful. Yes, the civilization was extraordinary. History is not lying about that part. But it would probably still kill you. Not in one dramatic cinematic moment either. That would almost be considerate by comparison. It would kill you the way the ancient world usually killed people. Gradually, practically, and without bothering to admit it was happening. You do not step into ancient Egypt and become part of the legend. You step into ancient Egypt and learn what the legend was made of. And what it was made of mostly was ordinary people enduring hunger, labor, disease, obedience, and fear so something magnificent could outlive them. From a distance, it all still looks like glory. Gold, sunlight, order, sacred power. The kind of image history frames very, very generously. But when you stand underneath it, the picture changes. Suddenly, it is not glory first. It is effort, strain, waiting, and bodies doing the carrying. That is the part people usually skip when they romanticize
are
the
only
past.
a mask for the
legend only
tedious
stands
work
because
that
ordinary
builds
people
a
spent
legacy.
themselves holding it up. So the real lesson is not that ancient Egypt was fake. It was real, brilliant, beautiful, and brutally expensive in human terms. Its monuments were real. Its power was real. Its continuity was real. So was the price. And that price usually looked like somebody very ordinary. Which means the danger was never only one thing. Not just birth, not just labor, not just parasites, not just war.
They are one.
But all of them accumulating.
I cannot believe
That
this
is why
still
survival here
happening.
keeps narrowing into exhaustion.
We told you
The
it
longer
would.
you last, the more
I
ways the
am
world
so
finds to
tired.
spend you. And by the end, that is the final joke history plays on you. The more extraordinary the civilization looks, the more ordinary the suffering beneath it feels. So
They
no,
built all of this.
you probably would not
and
survive
yet
ancient Egypt.
They were not spared.
Not because the story lacks wonder, but because the wonder was built by people the wonder did not spare. And that is the cruelest part of the whole thing. The civilization survives in memory precisely because so many individuals inside it did not survive at all. What history preserves is the stone, the symbol, the power, the continuity. What it usually loses is the sweat, the weakness, the fear, and the names. So when modern people imagine themselves stepping into this world, they usually picture the monument. They almost never picture becoming the cost of it. But that is where the fantasy breaks. The past was not built for your comfort, your self-expression, or your personal arc. It was built to keep going. And if it needed your body, your obedience, your labor, or your silence to keep going, then that is exactly what it would take. So no, you probably would not survive ancient Egypt in any heroic, cinematic, legend-worthy way. It would be smaller than that, colder than that. It would be one more ordinary life squeezed into usefulness, worn down by necessity, and slowly traded for the appearance of something eternal. That is what the legend was made of. Not magic, not destiny,
it must.
just systems, survival, and an enormous number of people who were never asked. Which means the final truth
The
is almost
outsider
rude in its
stood,
simplicity.
his painted
Ancient
eyes
Egypt was
taking in the
extraordinary
grand truth.
because ordinary people kept paying for it.
These temples,
That is the
these,
thing, really.
I feel the
You
weight
do not
of
walk
this
into ancient
empire
Egypt and
on
become the
me.
legend. You become
I
the
am
labor,
the body
risk,
beneath
the body
the
beneath it.
legend.
And that
and
is
the
why it
labor
would
that
probably kill
built
you.
it.